Hey everyone, it's Brett Hornby here, back for another storytelling here in my latest personal vlog. Here I am up to personal log 43. I'm going to call this one Heritage Day Weekend Memories here, and while it always happens on the first weekend of August up here in Canada, there was really no particular reason behind it here, as you don't get really a straight answer on what it's for or what it means. But we always welcome another long weekend, especially here in the dog days of summer here. But this personal vlog coming up is kind of going to expand on my memories of when I shared about my first personal vlog, or actually it was about last year at this time, as I was going on YouTube and doing it more seriously and make more consistent content here, that I started this personal vlog as part of my channel in addition to my Calgary Sports, where I talked about how Mount Robson changed my life, and that was my first personal vlog here. But I'm kind of going to expand on my Heritage Day weekend memories here, that I always think about that long weekend back in 2008, and how in retrospect my trip I did then changed my life. But I'm going to expand on just the whole weekend here, as this and this basically all comes together here. But back in 2008, I thought about maybe this year that I was going to go away for the Heritage Day weekend here and take a couple extra days off from work, which is what I did then to make it work. But I thought of, this weekend I wasn't going to go away because, there's a game on Saturday and we're playing the Edmonton Eskimos, and I'm not wanting to give up a game day to go away. But then that got me thinking that 11 years ago, back in 2008, I still had a game. There was still a game day in Calgary, and I still got to do that and do a trip here. Although, keep in mind, 11 years ago, I was much younger and had a personal vehicle, and back then I was more up for, doing a long day drive to go somewhere overnight than to come home. But to remember this Heritage Day weekend back in 2008 here, that entire weekend was basically a ride and life-changing experience, because back in 2008, it was the Saturday night, we were playing the Calgary Stampeders. We're playing the Saskatchewan Roughriders at that time, and at that time, the Saskatchewan Roughriders were defending Grey Cup champions because they won the Grey Cup in 2007, and that was our first Grey Cup since 1989. And as always, when we have a bunch of fans from Riderville that come into town and cheer on the Riders in our house, and that's exactly what happened that game. Unfortunately, the Calgary Stampeders lost that game, but I felt at that time the Calgary Stampeders back in 2008, they were still getting used to playing under head coach John Huffnagel, and then at that time the Saskatchewan Roughriders, fresh off of winning the Grey Cup in 2007, they actually, at that time, they were 6-0, and Rider fans were definitely all excited that they were starting the season 6-0 there. I think, if I remember, the Calgary Stampeders fell to 3-3 at that season, at that time after that game. I mean, unfortunately, the only highlight for me of that game was that every few years, or every so often, the Calgary Stampeders, they elect players on the Wall of Fame, they call it, and one of my favorite Calgary Stampeders of all time actually had his honor in Doug Flutie, one of the most exciting quarterbacks to ever play, and I'd say the best quarterback to ever play in the CFL, and I'm glad he played 4 of his 8 seasons with the Calgary Stampeders, but he was part of the players that were honored and won the Wall of Fame that night, and fortunately that was only the highlight of that game. However, you also recall back in 2008, well, ultimately this happened, because I think after that game, Calgary really got things going, and They were 3-3 that time. They ultimately finished the season 13-5 and wound up finishing first in the West. Saskatchewan did finish second, and they actually lost in the West semifinal there, and went on and ground one out against the BC Lions, and the Calgary Stampeders ultimately were the last one celebrating that year as we won the Grey Cup against Montreal in Montreal there. So this happened in 2008. But I'll go back to that weekend there that I felt that was a turning point for the Calgary Stampeders that season. Then for me the next day there, that's when I already planned I was going to do a Banff to Jasper drive there, and many experiences and lessons were experienced then. Lessons learned, experience gained at that time. It was my first major solo drive in the Canadian Rockies, where I drove through Banff and Jasper National Park there. I learned that it's a bad idea to try to drive to Moraine Lake and Lake Louise, let's say during the day on a long weekend. That's definitely not recommended, and traffic over time, since I regularly go to the Rockies there, has definitely increased. So as bad as traffic I had to put up with then, I can only imagine it being worse now if you were brave enough and sane enough to venture trying to go to Moraine Lake or Lake Louise during the day on a Sunday of a long weekend. Less learned, Brett. But then that's where I also picked up the beauty of the Canadian Rockies and seen many of these postcard images along the way on Highway 93, the Ice Parkway that connects from Lake Louise to Jasper there. But then when I was looking for hotel rooms, I found that Jasper, it's got even worse now, but Jasper is definitely one of the most expensive places to stay for a hotel, especially on a long weekend in the summer. Or Jasper is expensive year-round, I find now, because even if I look for hotel rates, in off-peak seasons, and it's still pretty expensive. But when I was looking for a hotel room to stay overnight, because this was the Sunday that I was driving, and eventually got to see Moraine Lake and Lake Louise there, but there were beauty sites as they are. There was too many people there to deal with, especially when parking was an issue, and I think now they implement more transit options and crowd control, because that's what I mean. I can imagine traffic's any worse there, but got to experience all the sights along the way and got to see Jasper there. But then ultimately, when I was finding a decent room for a decent price stay for an overnight trip, that's where I went to Valemount, and Valemount is a place I go to fairly regularly, and it's about an hour 20 west of Jasper if you go west on the Elliott Highway number 16, and eventually takes you into British Columbia, and then Valemount's on the north end of Highway 5, which is the South Elliott Highway that eventually connects from Tuktoyaktuk, that junction where 516 meet, and Valemount's about 20 kilometers south of Tuktoyaktuk, and then eventually that's that road that takes you all the way down to Kamloops and meet up with the 1 or the 5, where it becomes the Coquihalla, or eventually it takes you all the way down to Hope and meets up with 1 again and take it to Vancouver. Valemount's kind of the unofficial halfway community if you were going to Vancouver from Edmonton. But anyway, I did all that drive. I stayed overnight in Valemount, and then it was the next morning that really blew my mind away, because I heard about Mount Robson and being the tallest peak in the Canadian Rockies there. But I remember driving there. Well, I was tired and was wondering when Valemount was going to come, but it was cloudy. And when you're driving west, you don't see it. Now I know where the visitor center is, but if you're driving west, you almost miss it. However, if you're driving east, you see it. And that's when I saw it the next morning. It was a perfectly clear sky. I was checking in my room in Valemount, and I was going to go spend the day in Jasper and look at some sites before I drove home. Try to maximize my 1-day overnight trip, plus my 1-day pass when you go through the gate at Parks Canada there. But that's when I definitely saw the full beauty of Mount Robson and saw the whole site there, and I fell in love with Mount Robson, the site, saw the whole mountain, and hear from locals there, it's rare to see the top of the mountain. And yeah, that is true, because there's times that I've gone there where I barely get to see the top, or don't get to see the top at all when I'm there. But I got to see that at Moose Lake, and then eventually went to Jasper and saw the town site, and then went to see Moline Lake, and that's when I eventually learned that if you want to see the world famous Spirit Island, you need to either be ambitious and book a canoe and rent one, or take the boat tours that most people do. And I eventually did that and saw Spirit Island on another trip there. But it was this trip where eventually saw the Moline Lake, the Moline Valley Canyon there, and then drove that Highway 93 back south, eventually back home to Calgary there. But it was that overnight trip that I look back in 11 years ago, now this weekend, because now it's 2019, I did this back in 2008 here, and I mean, every year since then, I have to spend some of my time in Mount Robson and visit those areas, and I find different ways to spin it. And this year, for example, here, my summer holiday that I plan to take late August here, just before Labor Day, is I'll be heading up to Dawson Creek. I've never been up there, and there's a few sites I want to see along the way there, and this will actually mark the furthest north that I've ever been. But then eventually I'm going to take Highway 97 and go through, Chetwynd, Mackenzie, and eventually lead down to Prince George, and then go east on from Prince George and go stay in McBride. And that's the other community I also stay in the Robson Valley there, because McBride's roughly an hour away from Valemount. I mean, it's 2 hours away from Jasper, but it's a nice little village as well, and know some people that live there. And I mean, it's just the whole beauty of the whole valley, and you're on the edge of the Canadian Rockies and into another mountain range where the Caribou and Monashi are. And I mean, it's just a nice place to go to get away from the big city and still be within a day's drive from Calgary, and heck, you're a couple hours away at most from one of the best places in the world. And the Canadian Rockies, where millions of people visit every year. And as my experience since I started that first trip 11 years ago up to every year since, I definitely see the traffic is definitely increasing. I mean, that's why there's definitely a lot more bus service. At least they have the summer bus service where you can ride a bus from here in Calgary to Banff for $10 one way. I mean, there's other options that are more expensive year round, and then they have more transit that connects you in Banff there. But I think they could use that in Jasper too, or you have a place where you can just park your car and take the bus and ride everywhere and not have to worry about traffic. But maybe that'll happen down the road here. But that's why it's all part of my Heritage Classic memories here. I mean, or Heritage Day weekend, not mixing the events here. I also do have experiences in my memories from Heritage Classic game that I took part in that in 2011 there, and it'd be nice if I could go to make it work if I went to the one that's happening this year with the Calgary Flames and Winnipeg Jets when they're playing in the Mosaic Stadium in Regina there. But that's a different story. But this is memories of Heritage Day weekend, and it always goes back to my weekend that I had back in 2008 there. That I mean, that was back when I was younger, where I could be able to do a longer drive. I mean, now I don't have a personal vehicle, so I have to take the extra step to book and rent a car, and then factor in costs there. But it seems like, especially in the last 11 years, I've gotten a lot more busier there, and time seems to be more precious. That now it's like when I want to go somewhere, it's got to be worth the trip instead of just one quick, or it was a quick overnight trip but long drives, if that makes sense there. But I mean, this is my story of Heritage Day weekend memories here. It's back to 2008. I elaborated on the experience of the game there. I think that game in the 2008 season turned the Calgary season around and for the positive, and eventually won the Grey Cup. And it was awesome to see Doug Flutie get inducted in the Wall of Fame there. And then I mean, I did this drive. I wanted to see all those sights there, and it's since then some of my vacation time, I got to go back to the Robson Valley and Canadian Rockies there, and I will get to do that again later this month if things go as planned. And I mean, I've already spent some time in the Canadian Rockies this year, including Valemount. But the reason why I'm not staying in Valemount for this upcoming trip here is because I think more people have caught on to my scheme that it's much cheaper to stay there than in Jasper, and I say that village definitely is suspect to summer bus tour tax, I call it, where $100 rooms that when I stay there in the spring suddenly goes up to like $250 a night because you get a lot of tourists and bus tours. And I looked it up that actually a lot of bus tours stay there, and actually there's a lot of bus tours where a lot of Asians, mostly people from China and Korea, they come and ride the bus. It starts in Vancouver and it stops in Valemount overnight, and then they get up nice and early and go to Banff or Jasper and Banff to see the many postcard sites in the Canadian Rockies there, and eventually I think they either go back to Vancouver from there or fly back. But that was just one quick search I did. I was like, man, you get a lot of bus tours that stay in Valemount, and plus, a lot of people calling my scheme there, and choices either bite the bullet or what happened that I did last year is I wound up staying in a run-down hotel that was right near the train line, and you definitely lose some sleep with that, if you know what I mean, especially when you have freight trains, because the main CN line actually goes through Valemount. But it's all the choices you have there. The other reason that I want to stay in McBride is I think I finally figured out when the Dunster Train Museum is open and at the train station there, and I think I finally found out when it's open, and it'll be open when I'm there. So that's the plan there, and just add even more memories to time in Mount Robson and the Robson Valley there. But that's definitely my story on Heritage Day weekend memories there. If you enjoy everything I do on my YouTube channel, if it's personal vlogs like this, or big part of my channel is talking about Calgary sports, or definitely cover the Flames, Hitmen, Roughnecks, and Stampeders, and recap news and events or big transactions, which there's definitely been a few of that with the Calgary Flames lately. Just make sure you subscribe. And I also do share some moments I capture at sporting events and when I'm on vacation there. So like any moments I capture on my camera or smartphone there. So that's what my channel's all about. So if that all interests you, just make sure you hit like, subscribe, and thanks for watching along, and thank you if you're already subscribed, and comment and enjoy my content here. And as I always say, I'll see you in the next video.